Good morning, and welcome back to Sitting on the Couch with Jeff. My name is Jeff, and joining me today is David. David is a University of Washington PhD student studying educational psychology. Has very little to do with the video, but I figured he'd be a great person to talk about our subject today.
Please, Jeff, just call me a very important guest star.
Very important guest star, David. All right, David, this morning I wanted to talk to you a little bit about safe injection facilities in Seattle. What do you know about a safe injection facility?
I think people should put their needles there.
You think they should put their needles there?
I was
Any
trying
questions?
To sound smart.
It didn't work out too well.
Okay. I don't have any questions off the bat other than what is all that stuff you're talking about?
A safe injection facility? Alright, so a safe injection facility is a place where heroin users, although it doesn't necessarily have to be heroin, it could be any opioid, even cocaine in some areas, it's where they can go and they can take their drug. They will be monitored for things like overdoses, they'll be given clean needles, clean syringes, it's medically staffed. So really, a safe injection facility at its core is a place where people can go and take drugs just to make sure that they don't overdose.
Interesting. So they're provided drugs at the safe injection facility.
That's a good question. They're not provided drugs. And that's one of the biggest things about safe injection facilities. A lot of the problems that people have, they say, oh, they can go and they can take drugs at a safe injection facility, but they're not provided drugs. Which means...
Bring your own drugs.
Bring your own drugs. But where are they getting those drugs? They're still getting them from illicit drug dealers. They're still getting the drugs from... all sorts of like sketchy, scary circumstances. So yes, they have a safe place to take them, but they don't have a safe place to buy them. And so when we talk about safe injection facilities, we find ourselves in this area where it's like, okay, we're just really supporting a habit. And yes, we're keeping them alive. Yes, we're keeping them from overdosing, but... what are we doing to actually stop the drug problem in Seattle? I'm glad you asked.
Me
so,
too.
There's a lot right now that's on the market in terms of drugs that help reverse overdoses. So there's like Narcan, and these are opioid inhibitors. So what happens is if a person overdoses and they're at the safe injection facility, well, that's pretty much immediately going to be administered. And then it brings them back like that. It's instantaneous.
Wow.
So it keeps them alive. But the big thing in keeping them alive is then hoping that they also find help. So in finding help, these injection facilities, they're going to offer all sorts of services. They will offer medical assistance as much as they can. The safe injection facility that's being proposed in Seattle is going to have 2 staffed nurses and upwards of 4 volunteers. They're going to also offer services to like addiction treatment and counseling. So even though they're still going to be taking the drugs, the hope is that we can actually bring them in and kind of help them out. So there's a story I kind of wanted to tell you about, and this took place at Insight up in Seattle. One second, let me just pull it up here. There's a guy, actually his name's Guy Felicia, right? Now, Guy Felicia was a heroin user. He said that he went to Insight, again, the safe injection site up in Vancouver, BC. He said that he went there upwards of 5,000 times. He overdosed 5 times. And then he would go on and he would just keep on going and keep on using. He said one overdose, he woke up, the nurses revived him or whatever, and he said it changed his life. And so he went and he spoke to the nurses, and he actually got the help that he needed. So he said, I want to quit this drug. As of today, he's been sober for 5 years. He has a steady job. He's married and has kids. And he attributes all of that to a safe injection facility. What do you think about safe injection facilities so far?
What are we doing here, Jeff? Is this an intervention? Is this an information session? Are you supporting a position that you want to open one of these? Is this a business opportunity? What are we doing?
Well, currently what we're doing is trying to figure out whether or not we believe that Seattle should open these.
Okay.
It's an extremely controversial issue, but they're also needed for a lot of reasons. So, Have you ever heard of any blood-borne transmitted diseases? HIV, AIDS, hepatitis?
Yes.
Do you know that those are prevalently spread along heroin users?
Yes.
One of the biggest ways that those are spread is through the use of contaminated needles, sharing needles, finding dirty needles. And in the city of Seattle, in 2015, January of 2015, they found something like 156 needles in the city of Seattle, just out on the streets. In February of 2016, they found like 550 needles, like an exponentially greater number in less than a year. Now, having those needles out on the street can be a huge problem, right? Innocent bystanders can stick themselves and actually get infected with AIDS, HIV, hepatitis. Same thing, it requires cleaning crews, and these cleaning crews have to be trained, so they can't just be your normal, regular cleaning man or janitor. They need to know their bloodborne pathogens. They need to, safe ways to handle this. And so there's a lot of push to get it done for that reason as well. It doesn't only help the people that have, the drug addiction. Right. It also potentially helps the community. There's also been studies that have shown that cities actually save money. It costs a lot of money to deal with an overdose on the street. You have to call out the fire, you have to call out the police, you have to call out the ambulance. There's a hospital ride. There's a hospital stay. There's the Narcan, what's being injected. They have to do all sorts of blood work and diagnostics. It's very, very pricey for the city, given that many of these injectors can't, pay for it themselves. Same thing, when we look at a lot of the treatment options, a lot of these people that are suffering from this addiction, they're getting treatment in the hospitals, or they're getting treatment in jail. And both of those are extremely, extremely expensive for us. So people say that we could actually save money by opening up these injection sites. Then again, it comes at the cost of allowing people to use drugs, which means that, there's naturally going to be a lot of objections. So I want to talk about a federal way senator. He's a Republican, Senator Mark Militia, and this guy sees all of the good that we're talking about, and yet still understands this. He says, standing idly by while addicts abuse illegal drugs is not compassionate, and it does not solve the problem. So he's done a couple different things. He actually wrote a letter to Attorney General Jeff Sessions to say, look, we need to give this the kibosh. Now, he brought up a bill. It's the State Bill 5223, and Senate Bill 5223 would effectively ban safe injection sites by removing the authority from the cities. Now, safe injection sites are a city issue. Really what it comes down to is the public health office. Right. So when we're talking about whether or not this is going to get passed, it has to go through Seattle's public health office. Now, Senate Bill 5223 would eliminate that. However, Senate Democrats in the state of Washington have said that that bill would never even make it to the table. I'm sure you're aware of this as a very politically astute man such as yourself.
Please, I'm just a special guest star today.
Just a special guest star. But Washington is majority Democrat, so it's hard for Republicans to get anything moving, which is why there's a group now that decided to take it to a vote. Because as Republicans, I'm not Republican, but as Republicans, nothing's going to get passed through the Senate, so there's an initiative that started called Initiative 27. Now, Initiative 27 is going to be, it had more than enough signatures, and really what Initiative 27 goes for is just having the people vote on it. Because if we can pass a vote, then we can make it happen. Now, that's actually going to be voted on in November to check and see whether or not we get it. But it's still wide up in the air. Now, there's a lot of people in the area that think it's a good idea, a lot of people that think that it's a bad idea, but really, I think that what's most important is that people take the time, such as yourself, to sit down, to hear it out, and to decide for themselves what they think about it. Well, David, I want to thank you for sitting down with me today to talk a little bit about safe injection facilities. Did you learn anything today?
I did, Jeff. One thing I also want to share is from my own work as an educator and child care provider, is that, kids do play around bushes, things like that do have needles in it that are dangerous to them. Absolutely. So your whole kind of spiel makes me realize just how wide-ranging and far-reaching this public health issue is. It affects different people in the community, and it's interesting to think about how would you pass legislation that accounts for that. So you've got me thinking now, Jeff. Thanks so much.
That's great.